Welcome back to Deck Check, where you better check yourself before you deck yourself. We are so excited to have you back for the 18th episode of the Off Meta podcast. I'm Ganesh.
And I'm Samurai Dancer. Today we're heading to the outback and flinging lizards with Gev, the scaled Scorch. Welcome to Off Meta, where the brews that are hot shoot their shot.
In this show, we focus on the fascinating off-meta cEDH decks people haven't seen yet, like the wonderful Gev Scaled Scorch. Bit of a tongue twister. We'll have a fresh new episode every Friday by 6 p.m. Central Time.
Off Meta is not responsible for the tournament results of decks and cards mentioned on Off Meta. If there's a brew you'd like us to take a look at, or you'd like to appear on the show itself, let us know in the Discord or in the comments down below.
If you like this sort of content, remember to like and subscribe. Maybe send us to the friend, throw it in the group chat, send it to your mom, your cat. And this week, instead of the news, we have a fun announcement to make.
We will be having a free online cEDH tournament on August 10th. So tomorrow, when this video comes out,
yes, a free online Pride cEDH tournament. You can use any combination of two cards that could legally be your commander and partner them together. In fact, you must for this tournament. This includes legendary creatures, backgrounds, and planeswalkers that say can be your commander.
For example, Rograk, Son of Rogra, and Dahada, Binder of Wills, or you can partner up Street Urchin and Tabashat, Doom of Fools.
With about $80 in prize support for the top 4 players, our Pride-themed pricing is a sliver Overlord Secret Lair foil at $60 value for first place.
Last time you gotta say it, man.
A Diabolic Intent borderless foil at $10 value. A Forbidden Orchard borderless at about a $7 value. And a Rainbow Command Tower borderless foil at about $3 for 4th place.
You'll also get a special Discord roll if you make top 4 or top 10, depending on the cutoff. So come on in and fight for Pride. The Rainbow Rumble this Saturday.
And without further ado, let's hop right into Gev Scaled Scorch. Are you ready to take your cEDH gameplay to the next level? Join my coaching program and learn from a proven champion. With many tournament wins, I offer personalized coaching tailored to your deck and goals. Enjoy ongoing support, gameplay reviews, practice games, and individual or group lessons. Don't just compete, conquer. You can contact me anytime through the Discord link below. All right, we are back with Spuki. Welcome back, Spuki. And thanks for coming back on the show to tell us a little bit more about Gev Sealed Scorch. Now, before we get too deep into the Lizard Mercenary here, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself for those that haven't seen the last video we had you in. So your name or your username, how long you've been playing, your favorite decks, and generally where in the country or world you are located.
Gotcha, yeah. Thanks for having me back, by the way. So my name is Jacob, or more commonly known on Discord and social media and stuff as Spuki, S-P-U-K-I. I've been playing the game since about 2014. I sort of played throughout high school and quit playing when I graduated, but then I got back into it after I started an actual job and make money. So I got back into it. Eventually I got back into cEDH, or into cEDH for the first time. My favorite deck is just Pantlaza, which is the last one, the last deck tech video we did.
Yeah.
For me anyway, not that Ganesh did, but the last one I was on. And I am from basically the Birmingham, Alabama area, southeast Birmingham area.
Cool. Yeah. So usually we'd ask about tournament results, but Gev has literally just come out in Bloomburrow, so don't think anyone's had enough time to actually do anything with him. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what exactly Gev does and his abilities and his mana cost, all that good stuff for those listening at home?
Sure, yeah. Gev Scaled Scorch is a 2-mana 3/2. He costs 1 black and red. He's a Rakdos commander. He is a Lizard Mercenary with Ward, pay 2 life. Other creatures you control enter with an additional +1/+1 counter on them for each opponent who's lost life this turn. And then whenever you cast a lizard spell, he deals 1 damage to target opponent. Yeah.
Yeah, I was very happy when I saw this fling. What is it? Glumgolly or whatever? The other
Rumgully.
the little Grumgolly or whatever,
Yes.
the goblin that did the sort of the same thing.
Yeah, the Gruul
In Gruul?
Goblin.
Yeah, I said Gruul was a terrible color for that. It should have been Rakdos. And they obliged and gave us a Rakdos one because Rakdos has some of the best persist creatures in the game.
Yeah.
And I was like, with tutors and red being so good at making temporary mana, I was like, this is going to be great. The only thing I was a little down, I thought I was a little sad about in this set was they didn't have enough lizard support, in all honesty. And I don't mean enough lizards, I mean just enough lizards that did other things for lizards.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's a couple, most of the lizards in this deck are from this set. I'm still playing around with different lizards and seeing which ones are actually worth running and which ones aren't. I should be taking this to an event after the Invitational. There's an event I'm going to the weekend after, and that should be the first weekend I actually take this to an event.
Thing.
So hopefully that goes well.
I'll be going to the Invitational with you.
Yeah.
By the way, and I'll also have another local after, right after this next weekend. So I don't know if I can. I might not be able to put together all these cards by then. But anyway, yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about why play this deck at all? What made you interested in this specific commander out of the thousands and thousands of legendary creatures and planeswalkers that you can pick?
Sure, yeah. So I really don't know what initially compelled me to build Gav. I was messing around with some of the Bloomburrow commanders. And initially I started working on a Balin list. And eventually, I think when Gav was spoiled, that's about when I started working on this. And as I found more lizards that actually kind of did something, especially when put together, I was like, okay, this deck is super cool. And once I realized that it worked with persist creatures, even better, right?
Yeah.
So the real reason to play this is if you like cool little guys and you like Rakdos play patterns that also go fast with, Nas, Bolus, the Citadel, things of that nature. You're wheeling for these combo pieces. If you like going fast, you like lizards, probably a deck to try.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. It's a deck that just epitomizes Rakdos. It's sack little things to get better things or to kill your opponent, replay using Cloudstone carrier loops. It's treasures galore. It's abusing the fact that people don't really run enough interaction, in all honesty. Enough of the correct interaction. And people don't really run stacks pieces anymore. It's really taking abuse of the meta. And that's the best time to play Rakdos, is when we're in this sort of, oh, screw it, let's just play turbo meta. It's like, well, nothing goes more turbo than Rakdos. Like, there's a reason why Rog Silas, you only ever see the Rog for the most part. Now, my question is quite similar. It's a little simple. Like, what's your game plan / strategy? How are you going to get to where you need to go? And what do you do when you get there?
Okay, so our main game plans are the more turbo-y routes, right? We want to go fast as much as possible. So we're running things like Nas for an early Nas. We're running Citadel for an early Citadel. Do I need to read these cards? Ad Nauseam and Bolus to Citadel?
Why not? There might not.
Ad Nauseam is a 5-mana instant, black, and 3. It says, reveal the top card of your library and put that card in your hand. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. You may repeat this process any number of times. So basically, it's just one massive draw spell to put all of the combo pieces you would ever need in hand and win the game either that turn or if you did it at end step or something the turn afterwards. And Bolus's Citadel is a 6-mana artifact, legendary artifact. It costs 3 black and 3 colorless. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play the top card of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its converted mana cost rather than pay its actual mana cost. When you can tap and sacrifice 10 online permanents, each opponent will lose 10 life. It's basically just a huge advantage engine that just, even though you don't know what the cards you're getting most of the time is, generally it proceeds to a win the turn you play it.
Right.
To help facilitate the Bolus Citadel plan, we're actually only on 22 actual lands. We're on 26, including MDFCs, but I'm on the MDFCs because of the Citadel plan. We're pretty ingrained on that. We have some pivot plans if we're not going more turbo-y. So we're on these little value creatures that allow you to ping or have your opponents lose life to slam some big guys for cheap, right? So say we have an Agate Blade Assassin on field with Gev out. We move to combat, we swing that, each opponent will lose 1. You gain a life, sure. Second main phase, say you just have, I don't know, like an Omnixilus in hand, right? Slam that. He enters with 3 counters on him already. So you're paying 4 mana for what, a 7/6 with flying trample. It's absurd. Like the value you get off of your grind plan is worth playing Gev, I think.
Something I wanted to touch on really quick before we get too far into it. So we were talking about MDFCs. So the reason that the MDFCs actually matter, like if people didn't catch that, so Bolus Citadel lets you play cards off the top of your library. This includes lands. But the nightmare scenario with Bolus Citadel is you resolve it. Maybe you're smart, maybe you're thinking about it. You don't make your land drop to prevent the scenario, and you play land off the top, and then the next card's a land. And since
looking at you, Jimmy Wong.
Yeah, so if you've already used up your land drops, Bolus Citadel just stops. So what the MDFCs do is, since they are technically the front side of it is the side that Bolus Citadel sees, and the way it is in any zone besides if you play it for the other side of the battlefield, you can actually cast it actually by paying life. It's not going to be a land for Citadel purposes. So I just thought I would throw that out there real quick.
Yeah. Heads up, folks. MDFCs are not, they are only that first triangle anywhere else but the battlefield. So remember, if you're searching for something, that triangle is what you're searching for.
Yeah.
Yes, precisely.
I'm a big fan of Bolus Citadel. I've loved it since, War came out. I also love that, like, not a lot of people know this in decks like yours, where people go like, oh, well, how do you win through the One Ring? Well, you Bolus Citadel. Do a loop with Bolus Citadel. That's literally how you win.
Do that. So for those that aren't aware, I should just explain really quick. The last ability on Citadel where you tap, sacrifice 10 non-land permanents, each opponent loses 10 life. The One Ring's protection doesn't stop that, because protection from everything is only like damaged, targeted, just like a few other things like that, but it does not stop life loss specifically if it doesn't target or anything. But anyway, cool. So why don't we go ahead and hop in? So I know we talked a little bit about Nas and Citadel. But what are the actual like finishers? So we know that Nas and Citadel are going to draw us a bunch of cards. That's like what they do.
Yeah.
But how are we, once we start drawing cards with Nas, or once we start going off with Citadel, how are we killing people? What's the combo?
Gotcha. So there are like 2 main win conditions that revolve around Gev himself. If you have, picture this, you have a Dockside Extortionist.
Wow.
Shocker there. Good card, right? He's a 2-mana Goblin Pirate. He's a 1/2. Whenever he enters the battlefield, you create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. And let's say you have any lizard.
Okay, I can imagine that. I can imagine having a lizard.
Yeah. So we're on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lizards. We're on 6 lizards. So it's fairly possible to have another lizard, right? And you have a Cloudstone Curio on the field. Okay. So Cloudstone Curio is a 3-mana artifact that says whenever a non-artifact permanent enters the battlefield under your control, you may return another permanent you control that shares a permanent type with it to its owner's hand. So if your Dockside is making, typically with your lizards, they're all 2 mana for the most part. So typically if your Dockside is making 4, you can infinitely storm and infinitely bounce your lizard and your Dockside to ping off the table. And then the other way to win, specifically with Gev, if you have an opponent lose life during your main phase or combat, and then you move to your second main. We're only on one, but we are on one persist creature, which is Murderous Redcap.
What is a Murderous Redcap? What does that do?
He's a Goblin Assassin, Rakdos Goblin Assassin. So he's Rakdos, and 2, 4 mana for a 2/2. When he comes into play, when it comes into play, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature or player, right? And then if you have a sack outlet, let's say like Skirk Prospector, you can, so post-combat, an opponent has lost life or several opponents have lost life, right? Doesn't matter either way.
Right.
You cast your red cap with your Skirk Prospector on field.
Mm-hmm.
You sacrifice the red cap to Skirk Prospector, which, by the way, is a 1 mana goblin that says sacrifice a goblin, add red to your mana pool.
Yeah.
The Murderous Redcap will come back because it has persist. The persist trigger will come back and it will get the 3 counters again because Gav says so. And then you can basically loop and deal damage equal to its power every time it comes back, which can be up to 5. But either way, it is just a loop that will bring the persist creature back every time.
Yeah.
And then,
so really quick for those that don't know, the way +1/+1 counters and -1/-1 counters work specifically, it's just those two that it works like this. They cancel out. So if you have a +1/+1 counter on a creature and then you put a -1/-1 counter on it, the second that ability resolves, they both just poof. Which is how this Murderous Redcap keeps coming back. Because if you read it, it says if it didn't have a -1/-1 counter, then that's the only time it'll come back. The +1/+1 counters Gev is giving it is what is letting it get rid of those -1/-1 and just ping everything down to the table.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So there are like 2 other main win conditions, really. Do you want me to go through like every way to win?
Why not?
I mean, not like the exact lizards, but like
why don't we talk about because I'm sure there's stuff in Gev that is just unique.
If I may?
It's interesting.
Okay.
Let's do Chthonian Nightmare win lines first.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So for those that don't know, Chthonian Nightmare is a new enchantment that came out in Modern Horizons 3. Costs 1 and a black, and when it enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy. You can pay X energy, sacrifice a creature to return the nightmare back to its owner's hand, and return a creature with mana value X from your graveyard to the battlefield. You can only activate that as a sorcery, but that's okay. We're just trying to win right there anyway, right? Most of the time. Mm-hmm. So with Dockside Extortionist, shocker there, we have a good card in the deck. If he's making at least 4 and you have, let's say like a Gate Instigator on the field, or you have an Orcish Bowmasters that you can sacrifice to it, you can loop those creatures to deal damage to your opponents infinitely, right? So every time, I'm sorry.
Really quick, a Gate Instigator is 1 and a red for a Lizard Rogue with Offspring, 1 and a red. And whenever another creature you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent, so 1/3. So
actually, you even got an even simpler combo too. As long as you've dealt 1 damage, you can do the same thing with the Ballista.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
You are correct. I haven't even seen that line.
Yeah, Walking Ballista will come back as a 0/0, but it'll come with a +1/+1 counter on it, or a couple from
you need to do 2 damage for that to work.
Yeah, so if it only comes in with 1, this won't work because you'll take it off, it'll die immediately to stay-based actions. But if it comes in with 2,
actually it still works, because as long as he's making more than 4 mana, it still hits.
Because you can activate the Ballista.
Yeah, you can start generating mana, and eventually, once you've made your Googleplex of treasures or whatever,
you put it into Ballista.
You can just land the Ballista, activate the Ballista, ping off the table. Yeah, I haven't even seen that. Thank you for pointing that out. But there actually, speaking of Walking Ballista, there is another combo with Walking Ballista specifically, other than just having infinite mana. So we're running Obnixilis, Captive Kingpin. He's a fairly popular Rakdos commander, probably the most popular Rakdos commander. He's a 4 mana 4/3 with flying and trample. He has whenever 1 or more opponents each lose exactly 1 life, put a +1/+1 counter on Obnixilis, and you exile the top card of your library. Until your next end step, you may play that card. So if you have Obnixilis on field, and you have an Agatha's Soul Cauldron on field, which is 2 mana. You can tap and exile target card from a graveyard. Whenever a creature card is exiled this way, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. And then creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have all activated abilities of all creature cards exiled with the Soul Cauldron.
I see.
So you put a counter on Ob. If he doesn't have any, that's fine. You can then remove. He then has the activated ability of Walking Ballista, which I don't think we've actually said yet. So it's an XX artifact creature that it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. 4 and activate. You can put a 1/1 counter on the Walking Ballista, and then you can remove a counter to deal a damage to any target.
Yeah.
So once Ob Nixilis has that ability, you can remove the counter that Soul Cauldron gave it to ping a player. Ob will trigger, you'll exile the top card, and he'll get a counter. You can rinse and repeat, pinging off the table to death with Ob Nixilis.
Right.
Okay. And then there's like one other pseudo main combo that I would go for in this deck.
Yeah.
Well,
what
sorry,
is it?
actually there's 2.
Yeah.
Also on Underworld Breach.
Of course. Okay. Yeah.
So one of the MDFCs actually enables a combo in this deck, and that's Pinnacle Monk. He's a 3 red Dijin. Jin?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Jin Monk.
I think it's Jin
Monk.
Monk.
Yeah. Dijon Mustard.
He has prowess. So whenever you cast a non-creature spell, he gets +1/+1 until end of turn. But the most important part is when he enters the battlefield, you return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So if you have a Dockside Extortionist that makes at least 5 treasures on ETB, you can cast a Twin Flame and strive it, targeting the Pinnacle Monk and the Dockside. So Twin Flame is a 2 mana sorcery with strive. And when you strive it, you can cast 2 in a red more to cast it for each target beyond the first. And it says choose any number of target creatures you control. For each of them, put a token that's a copy of that creature onto the battlefield. Those tokens have haste. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step. So what that'll do is that will end up making a copy of Pinnacle Monk and Dockside. Dockside will ETB, make 5 treasures. Pinnacle Monk will ETB and bring back the Twin Flame. And then you can rinse and repeat. You can have infinite 2/2s and infinite 1/2s to swing out for game. And then the other combo with Twin Flame is Dualcaster Mage.
Of course, a classic.
Of course, classic combo. When Dualcaster Mage is a 3 mana 2/2 human wizard with flash. Whenever he enters the battlefield, you can copy target instant or sorcery spell, choose new targets for the copy. So if you have a Twin Flame or a Heat Shimmer in hand, this one also works with Heat Shimmer, which is basically the same thing as Twin Flame. It just doesn't have the strive ability.
Right.
So if you target a creature on the battlefield with Twin Flame, it has to be a creature you control. You can then hold priority with that on the stack and cast your Dualcaster Mage. The Dualcaster Mage will target the Twin Flame on the stack. The Twin Flame copy will then target the Dualcaster, and this will rinse and repeat, and you'll make a Googleplex number of 2/2 hasty attackers there also.
Right.
Now, I'd like to describe the Grinding Station combo, just because this is one of the most common combos that I'll have people in game like playing me like at an event or in a league and be like, it's like I don't understand how this combos. And I'm like, okay, Grinding Station is a 2 mana artifact that has when an artifact enters the battlefield, untap Grinding Station. It also has this amazing phrase that says, sacrifice an artifact, target player mills 3 cards. Then we have Underworld Breach, which is a red and a colorless enchantment that gives all cards in non-land cards in your grave escape, where the escape cost is equal to its mana cost, and exile 3 cards. So you combine Grinding Station, Underworld Breach, any mana positive rock or mana neutral rock, doesn't even matter. And what's going to happen? You have Underworld Breach, you have Grinding Station. We're first going to talk about when Grinding Station enters the battlefield, it has an untap trigger on itself. So in response to that untap trigger, sacrifice an artifact. You will then mill yourself 3 cards. Grinding Station will then untap. Next. Hopefully you sacked a mana positive artifact or mana neutral artifact like Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petal, Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Mana Vault. Doesn't matter. What you're then going to do is exile 3 cards from your grave,
maybe even the 3 you just milled, and play that mana rock. Now, as long as it's not a Lotus Petal or a Lion's Eye Diamond or like a non-active mana rock, you can then tap that for mana. Grinding Station has an untap when that hits the battlefield. So in response to that untap from Grinding Station, you're then going to tap that mana rock and make a mana with it. Then you're going to sacrifice it to Grinding Station, mill yourself 3, Grinding Station will untap. You're going to rinse and repeat this process until you find cards that will more successfully do this, whether it be like a combo outlet, or if you're going mana neutral with like an LED or a Lotus Petal, a mana positive rock like Mana Vault or Mana Crypt, and then like any colored mana. What you're going to then do is when Grinding Station untaps, you're going to sack Grinding Station to itself, and that's going to give you another 6 cards to cast something from grave. Hopefully something that will mill you more cards. Or if you had even 1 extra card when you started this combo, you wait until you hit a Dockside, you cast the Dockside with mana that you've made from this mana rock, exiling everything except the mana rock. And what you're going to do is Dockside, when an ETBs, is going to make all those treasures that are going to tap your Grinding Station. You can then, in response to each untaps, sacrifice a treasure and mill yourself for each one of those.
Yeah.
And that's how you do the Grinding Station loop. You just keep going until you hit your combo.
Yep.
Preferably you want 2 to 3 other cards in grave when you start this. And preferably you actually kind of want like multiple artifacts on the field so you don't have to sack your Grinding Station. Because recasting it kind of sucks, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I don't think I saw any other sort of mega combo in here. I could be wrong. No, I think that was pretty much it.
Yeah, the only other like real combo in the deck is once you already do have infinite mana, you can start activating the Flame Cache Gecko to discard a card and draw a card.
Oh. So he's an infinite outlet, basically.
Yeah, so he's an outlet. Generally, once you're making the infinite mana, you're probably winning anyway. But if you're not, this is a pretty good way to find the win. Just draw into a Walking Ballista or something.
The Flame Cache Gecko is a 1 and a red for a Lizard Warlock. When it enters, if an opponent lost life this turn, add red black, and then you can pay 1 and a red and discard a card to then draw a card for it. And it's a 2/2. So you can loot through your entire deck until you hit some sort of like thing to do with your infinite mana. I'm trying to think what you could do with like specifically infinite red. I mean, yeah, you could just go like breach.
The main thing is Walking Ballista, right? You just draw until you hit Walking Ballista. But there are a couple things. You can just wait until you find like a Demonic Tutor and tutor for something to win.
Yeah.
Or you can just go for like a breach line of some sort because you're discarding cards to start this loop.
Right.
I also saw a new line that you could do.
Okay.
All right. So this one is if you have Dockside, Cursed Mirror, Cloudster Curio, and your commander.
Okay.
You basically go ahead and you make infinite mana with the Dockside in your commander, and then you copy your commander with the Cursed Mirror, and you just start casting your commander from your command zone.
True. You're right.
Oh, yeah. Because...
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, you so if you have infinite mana and you have a Curse Mirror, you copy your own Geb, and then you sacrifice the actual Geb, like your commander Geb, and then you zone it. And then when you recast Geb the second time, whenever you cast the Lizard spell, the Curse Mirror Geb will deal 1 damage to an opponent, and then you just kind of repeat this infinitely and making sure to sacrifice the original Geb every time.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's awesome, dude.
That's really cool.
I like that loop, yeah.
I was like, I don't know if he has Cursed Mirror, so I'm not going to bring it up. And then I was like scrolling through your artifacts and I saw the Cursed Mirror. I was like, oh, I'll bring this up before we head out of this section. So that's all the combos. So my question is, how does this deck kind of function in the early game? Like, is it like a slow starter, or are you mulliganing very aggressively? Like, what's your ideal here?
So at heart, I am an aggressive mulliganer, right? I am looking for a fast start in almost every deck I play. Either a fast start or a very grindy start, the start that's going to provide a lot of card advantage fast, right? So typically you're looking to mull for a fast start. Sometimes that's not possible. It definitely depends on pod composition. Sometimes you're going to want to mull for a more grindy start. Typically you're looking for a way to cast your ad nauseum, a way to find and put your Bolus of Citadel on field or cast it, or you're looking for a way to put out a heavy advantage engine like Obnixilis, or even the backside of Bergie plus Wheel. I guess I can say that. Let's see. The backside of Bergie is a 5-mana legendary artifact called Harnfell, Horn of Bounty. It has discard a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. And then if you cast that, and then you cast, say, a Wheel of Fortune, which 3-mana sorcery, each player discards their hand, draws 7. You then have basically doubled your Wheel of Fortune. You get to cast the spells you want to or need to, and then you can discard the rest to exile, double the cards that you're discarding. And these are just some engines or some plans that you're trying to get to. You really want to get a fast start in this deck, I think, because I think it does better in the early game than it does the grind game, but it can also pivot into that grind game plan if needed.
Yeah, what is it? I always say that the more turns you have, the more variables that are going to come into the game. And if you're not on blue, you want less variables.
Yeah.
It's like a divergent path, cascading turn of changes. I don't know if you've ever seen like a Plinko game where like you put like the little coin at the top and it goes down. Like it like hits like different like nails in the board to get to different paths to the end.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. When you're in Rakdos, you really, really do not want to be playing that kind of game. You want the board to be as small as possible so you don't get diverted.
Yeah.
It's something I've just noticed over the years. Now, we know that this is going to be an early game deck. In the mid game, it's definitely slowed down. What are you looking to kind of like build up in the mid game to like break that open and secure your win?
Sure, yeah. So in the mid game, we're really looking to see everything is going to revert back to finding a Citadel or finding your card advantage engines. But typically you're looking to deal damage, provide creatures that apply really big pressure because you've dealt damage to your opponents. And the better you're able to apply pressure, especially to these other Nas decks that are getting more popular in the format as we go more turbo throughout the year. The more pressure you're able to provide, the more likely I think you are to win that game, especially if it goes to a more grindy game plan. And Gev applies pressure. He makes these creatures big for cheap. So really you're just looking to, if you're not able to storm off early game, you're really looking to apply pressure and get as much card advantage as possible through some of these lizards and your Obnixilises.
Yeah, so it's kind of deceptive, just how much pressure Gev can represent, I think.
Yeah.
So like even like a minor combo, and this isn't even that crazy. So well, let's say it's a good case scenario where you did manage to make all 3 of your opponents lose life. And then you play out something like Agate Instigator. Now you are spending, this is a pretty optimal scenario for this deck, but very doable with all the small creatures. We're running 24 creatures. Like it's very reasonable for us to be able to damage 3 of them, especially since Gev's a 3/2. But yeah, so like for example, I get Instigator. If Gev's ability is at +3, you can pay 4 mana to offspring it, right? So it'll come in as a copy. And then all of a sudden, for 4 mana, you have, what is this going to be? A 2 3/6s, right? So those are just going to be...
it'll be 2 4/6s.
Oh, right. I forgot the one. Yeah. 4 6s, that's even bigger. So... yeah, I mean, with the commander, you're cracking in at someone with just those 2 cards, minimum like 11 damage, right?
Exactly, yeah. Because each one will see each other enter also and deal another damage to each opponent. So when you do that, that's 2 off rip, right?
Huh. Wait, so but you only get 1 cast trigger, right? Or does Offspring also a cast trigger?
So Offspring...
pretty sure it's a ATB. Judge.
Offspring, even if Offspring made a copy on the stack, it wouldn't matter.
It wouldn't trigger it anyway. I was thinking
maybe
only
one would see it, right?
Trigger.
Sometimes cards say you can cast the copy, So like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Offspring is sorry. I like to pick the cards that don't explain what the cards do, huh? All right.
Yeah.
So, how does Offspring work? Offspring is an additional cost you may pay when casting creatures with the Offspring ability. If you pay the additional cost, you make a 1/1 token copy of the parent creature when it enters.
A 1/1. Okay, my bad.
Okay,
My bad.
so it would enter as a 4/4.
4/4 and a
then your
4/6.
Gate Instigator would enter. And then the 4/4 would see your Gate Instigator entering, dealing 1 damage to each opponent. And then your Gate Instigator would enter as a 4/6.
Oh my god, yeah. That is kind of a mini combo there too.
Yeah.
I feel like we're all learning stuff today. Like I didn't know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is a brand new deck, right? So
yeah.
So even these little mini combos that I think even if you have, so if you have Dockside and your Cloudstone Curio would, even without Gev, even without access to Gev, I think you can win with this because if you bounce the Gate Instigator and you're presuming your Dockside is making enough mana, right? You can bounce your Gate Instigator, and when you cast it, you can offspring it
again.
And I guess you really only have to offspring it the first time, huh? And then that one creature will see your Dockside and Gate Instigator ETB. Yeah.
I mean, what's funny is if you're able to, this card is just so funny because like if you're able to keep bouncing it back and like, you're even able to offspring it like. I know this is a really big ask in cEDH, but I imagine once you get to the late game, and if you're not doing that much, and somehow Cloudstone Curio is able to resolve, you can start filling the board with these things, and like each one of them will trigger off of each additional more of them coming in. So like if you have like 1 or 2 of these offspring creatures, and then you offspring Agate Instigator again. You're getting, what is it? Oh god, I don't know. It's like another creature. So you'd get 2 in the beginning, and then the first one would already resolve. Does it enter as, or does it enter after with the offspring ability?
So the offspring creature will enter first as the guy, as the Agate Instigator,
and then you'll get your Agate Instigator.
Yeah.
So it's. Wait, hold on. Man, this is confusing. Okay, I gotta look it up too.
Yeah.
Okay. No. It's an ETB. It's an ETB. So
when it enters. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a cast trigger
and an ETB.
And an ETB trigger.
So yeah. So you do the offspring. If you have 2 already on the board, the first one would come in. You'd get 2 pings on your opponents, and then the original would come in, you get 2 pings on your opponents, and then the last one, the offspring, would come in, and you'd get 3 pings.
Yeah.
And then once you have that board state of like 4 pingers, anything you play is going to, that's each opponent too, so it's really going to start hurting.
You're doing 4 to each opponent every time you play a creature.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Anyway.
And if it's a lizard, you're dealing 5 to one opponent.
Yeah, you get a cast trigger too. But anyway, we have Agate Instigator, fun card, but we've kind of lingered on that.
You guys have really strayed into the outback on this one. Like, where's the bloomin' onions on this one, man? Like, come on,
No, man. I had one at I don't really, I've never really been to Outback Steakhouse because Hindu and
you're not missing.
I mean, anyway,
you've been to Roadhouse,
I went
right?
there
like
for the
Texas
first
Roadhouse?
time a while ago, and I just had the bloomin' onion. And it was like, okay, honestly, I didn't see the what all the fuss was about. I was like, all right. But anyway, speaking of things that take a long time to complete, what is your late game like?
Okay, so ideally, if you don't have your combo pieces or whatever, right, your late game is pushing for damage and pushing for card advantage, even off of like your opponent's decks, like with Laughing Jasper Flint. Who's a lizard rogue. He's a 3-mana 4/3 that has creatures you control but don't own are mercenaries in addition to their other types. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top X cards of target opponent's library, where X is the number of outlaws you control. Pause. We are on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 outlaws. So at its peak, right, which typically is not going to happen. Typically, you'll have 2 or 3. But at its peak, you're exiling 10 cards off of an opponent's library, and you just get to cast any of those spells you want. Because the rest of its text says, until end of turn, you may cast spells from among those cards, and mana of any type can be spent to cast those spells.
Did you count Gev in that number?
Yes, I did. Okay. So like at its peak, this card has flipped over a Cutzel and a Ristic Study off the same flip with just it and Gavin.
God.
Right?
Did you cast them both?
I cast them both. Because you can, so with Party Thrasher, right? This is another lizard. This is the lizard wizard, right? The funny words. It is a 2-mana lizard wizard that is a 1/4, and it has non-creature spells you cast from exile have Convoke. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may discard a card. If you do, exile the top 2 cards of your library, then choose one of them. You may play that card this turn. So specifically with Laughing Jasper Flint, if you reveal something that is a non-creature spell, which typically you will at cEDH, most of the spells are non-creatures. You can convoke your creatures to cast a spell that you flipped off the top, right? It's super fun and awesome to just slam Cutzel and then convoke creatures, cast Ristic Study, right? In your Gev deck that runs none of these colors. And it really, honestly, a lot of those flips will really help you get back into the game. Because if you flip over, I'm sorry?
There's like semi-Atali effect.
Yeah. It's like little mini Atali, right? It's definitely not as good as Atali, I would say. I mean, it is 3 mana, it's much less mana, but it's a slow burner. I'll call it a slow burner Atali.
Yeah.
But this has helped me get back into games that I was definitely losing, where I just reveal a Wheel of Fortune. Sure, we'll wheel, right?
Yeah.
So if we have made it to the late game and we're not comboing off, this is a really good piece to put you back into the game, right?
Keep getting value.
Same with Party Thrasher, because it lets you get that little bit of card advantage by discarding the dead cards in your hand that you don't need. So you're staring at your hand, so Wooded Foothills and an Ancient Tomb, and you don't need those cards because you have enough mana. You just discard one of those lands, and then you exile the top 2. You can cast one of those 2 spells, right? So there's a lot of pieces that really help you gain back the advantage that you might have dug yourself into, because a lot of this deck is cast, jam, try to win, wait until you draw into something else, right? And these pieces really help you get back into the game after you have tried to jam away, and as it worked, because we are in Rakdos colors, a lot of times it is harder to protect your win conditions.
Right.
Even though we're on things like Red Blast, Pyroblast of the sort, right? Deflecting SWAT.
Okay. So what would you say are this deck's strengths? So I know we talked a little bit about how it's fast, it's in Rakdos, which is really good.
Yeah.
And then we also talked a little bit about how, I don't think we've talked a little bit about how difficult it is to interact with, for example, the persist combo. And,
it is very difficult to interact with persist combos, especially if your sack outlet stuff is already on field.
Yeah.
It's basically like force the will, the red cap or bust,
Exactly. Like it's very, in cEDH in general, it's very, very difficult to counter creatures. Now that's changed as of recently. We've gotten what is it, the Gandalf one, the one that counters creatures with 2.
Stern Scolding.
We got that one.
Serenade.
And Strict Serenade. So I mean that's definitely changed. But even then you don't want to run too many of those, or you're gonna just die to Rogzai or something.
Yeah.
So it's in general, there's not really a lot of good free ways to interact with creatures. Because who do you know that's running freaking what's the black free one that's with your commander?
Black Deadly Rock.
Who do you know that's running Deadly Rollick? Who do you know that's running Force of Despair or whatever it is? But there's a trillion ways to counter non-creature spells for free. For
sure, yeah.
So they need to specifically have Force or Pact for your creatures, or they need to have spot removal, which admittedly is very, very effective against it. But yeah,
It
what
is
else would
specifically against the Murderous Redcap combo? Yeah.
Yeah. What else would you say are some of the strengths of this deck that people might not really think about?
It's Rakdos.
It's Rakdos. End of story. No. I think this deck's biggest strength is its multitude of combos and the ways that it can get to its win. It provides a lot of value in the very early game, and then it really tries to combo like right after that, right? And I think there's just a multitude of ways to do it. All of these cards sort of interlink with each other and sort of combo with each other. So I think that's its main strength behind it, is that it is a Rakdos deck that can just provide win after win after win because every card sort of combos with each other, right?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say but to expand on that joke, it's because Rakdos decks are often underestimated in the pod. People expect them to be fast, but they don't really think that they can interact with their win con.
Yeah.
Now, my thing is, I noticed no Vexing Bobble. Is that because some of your combos require 0 drops?
I am not on Vexing Bubble. I'm on and off the card. Maybe it's because I'm used to playing like Big Dino, where I'm trying to cast free spells a lot, so I might not even think about it. I'm actually going to add that to my considering pile. It's not in there. No, it's not. Yeah, I'm going to add that to my considering pile right now because, to be honest, I haven't even really thought about it in this deck. And that's probably why, is because I'm used to playing decks that don't typically want the Vexing Bubble, you know?
Yeah.
So that's going into considering and will probably be playtested soon.
So my question is, we've heard about its strengths. What's your nightmare scenario? What's its weaknesses? What's the decks that make you go, damn it? What's the cards that make you scoop up in your mind? You're still in the game, but you've already in your mind gone, what's my next round gonna be like?
Yeah. So I think the biggest weakness of the deck is probably honestly just the mirror of other turbo deck, right? So it's a lot harder, especially without us being on blue. It's a lot harder for us to interact with that player. So we're on a couple of pieces of interaction, but most of our interaction either does things to blue spells or just doesn't interact in the way that you want it to, especially against these non-creature spells, right? I think that's probably our worst matchup is actually against the mirror itself, but as people always say, right? Just win. Easy, just present your win first. And that's probably the best way to work your way around that. We also don't really like rule of law effects, which you don't really see in at least the tournament scene of cEDH.
Thank God.
Yeah.
For now.
Very happy about that. Laza does not like rule of law effects, I can tell you that right now.
No, neither does the blue form.
But what I will say is Gev does sort of play into that fairly well because you have these creatures that can really apply pressure quick.
Oh, yeah.
And if everyone is under a rule of law, then a lot of times you're able to provide more pressure than the rest of the table is. But it does hurt a lot of your actual just win the game on the spot combos. In fact, it hurts all of your win the game on the spot combos.
Yeah, I feel like we shouldn't underestimate Gev's buffing ability. You're never gonna lose your Bowmaster, or it's gonna, at least it's gonna be a lot harder to.
Your Bowmaster typically enters the battlefield either as a 2/2 or as a 4/4.
Yeah,
and it's incredible.
Yeah, so they're like, oh, I'll clone it, and then all someone has to do is draw one card, and then you've got a Bowmaster, and no one else does again.
It's awesome. Bowmaster in this deck, chef's kiss, man.
Yeah, because they're both. It makes a token, and the token also comes in with the extra counter, and it's
it does. It's automatically big.
Yeah.
Combos with Chthonian Nightmare. I don't know if anybody's mentioned that before in CD.
Yeah, it does combo with Chthonian Nightmare. I brought it up a little bit, but then we got down the Gate Instigator loop immediately after.
I love it. A Gate Instigator, the loop everybody was super excited about. Right?
Yeah.
Oh man. So yeah, rule of law effects, I can see that. Also, obviously, most non-green decks, Stony Silence is your nightmare.
Oh yeah,
scenario.
for sure.
Collector Roof.
Yeah, don't like to see Roof. Don't like to see
Draenith. Yeah.
Typically, don't like to see Draenith. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's certain cards in cEDH that no one likes to see. Rule of Laws, Oof effects, Dranith. No one likes to see those cards. So like when we say like that's the weakness, it's like, well, congratulations, you have the same problem as like Nadu.
Yeah. Yeah, we have the same problems that everybody else does, right?
I mean, I don't even know how bad Nadu has that problem because they just get freaking command beacon and they're fine. Like they have like 40
they hate Dranith. They hate it.
I mean, it's just they have ways of, like out of it, whereas some decks just don't really. Because like with some decks, like if you're not on a command beacon, you're like, oh, I'll try to swords the Draenith, and then the player's like, no, here's a counter spell, and then you're screwed. But like, I feel like Nadu can just go like, and Kinnan could do this too. Some builds of it ran it. They could just go command beacon, play Nadu, and there's not really much you can do about that.
You know what I think isn't played enough is Return the Favor.
I do. I like that card. Actually.
That card is good.
So, can I tell a story about Return the Favor?
Yeah.
This doesn't have to do with Gev.
That doesn't matter.
Well, actually, it does have to do with Gev.
Well,
I was playing this deck, so I'm not on it currently.
Yeah.
But the one time I cast Return the Favor, someone had cast a Thassa's Oracle, and then they, held priority as you do, and they cast their Tainted Pact. I was staring at my hand with a Dualcaster Mage and a Return to Favor in hand. So with the Tainted Pact on the stack, I flashed in Dualcaster Mage, Dualcaster ETB'd, targeted the Tainted Pact. I copied the Tainted Pact, exiled my library, and then I cast Return the Favor, targeting the Thassa's Oracle ETB.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Similar story, for those that don't
reiterated
know, Return the Favor is a 2-red spree spell that has instant, and so what a spree is, you have to choose one or any additional costs, and the 2 costs are 1 colorless, copy target instant spell, sorcery spell, activated or triggered ability. You may choose new targets for the copy, and then the other colorless is you can change the target of target spell or ability with a single target. My one ick with this card, I guess, is it is 3 mana, and it's hard to hold up 3 mana in your Rakdos deck where you're really trying to jam and utilize your mana as much as possible. But I do really like the card, and I think I could most definitely see playing it in this deck.
Yeah, because you don't care about your deck, because you have Breach, but you're not like a dedicated Breach deck.
Oh,
yeah.
As much. You can just consult and grab your other combo piece, and that's all you care about. Because Walking Ballista doesn't care about how many cards are left in your library. Like Murderous Redcap doesn't care about the rest of your library. A lot of these cards really don't. Chthonian Nightmare doesn't care how many cards you have left in your. Yeah, so actually, I think consult might be a good addition.
Or at the very least, at least he could run Tainted. He's running Tainted Pact already.
Tainted Pact for your most of the time pseudo tutor, right? You're exiling cards until you hit something that you want, or maybe you have a combo piece in hand. At end step, you're going to cast the Tainted Pact, which Tainted Pact says it is a 2 mana instant, 1 in a black. You exile the top card of your library. You may put that card into your hand unless it has the same name as another card exiled this way. Hint: we don't have one of those cards. And then you repeat this process until you put a card in your hand or exile 2 cards with the same name, whichever comes first. So typically, when you cast this, you're doing it either at end step or in main phase, wherever you are. You're looking for your second combo piece that combos with something that's in your hand or is already on field.
Right. Okay. So what are some tips you'd like to give players that are new to Get? Maybe not new to the game, but
yeah.
Don't
underestimate the value of some of these lizards. So like I was saying earlier, Laughing Jasper Flint has just done some absurd things for me. Party Thrasher pseudo comboing with Laughing Jasper Flint makes it even better. Don't underestimate your lizards. Also, mulligan pseudo aggressively, look for a fast start, look for a wheel, look for a Nas, look for a tutor, your typical things in your fast Rakdos based decks. Just don't fall for bad mulligans and don't underestimate your lizards mainly.
Right.
So I say this all the time to everybody. Remember this when you're doing CD.
a good 4 beats a mediocre 7 every time.
Every time, yes.
Every time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have mulled down to 4 and just stared at an awesome 4 and won the game way more times than I have just kept a hand that is 7 and it does some things, but it doesn't win.
Yeah. When you say to yourself, I don't want to mull down low against this deck, what you're saying is you don't trust your deck building to give you a hand that can beat these decks at the table.
When I was playing at Crimson Lion a couple months ago or something, I won my top 16 game on a mull to 3.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's hot.
It was like my keep was it was land, mana vault, demonic tutor, and I was like, my game plan's literally going to be turn 1 vault, turn 2 top deck a land and demonic tutor with the right colors, and then turn 3 Nas, and it actually worked.
You're like, all right, Nas results, cool, go.
Yeah, I win.
Infamously made it into the finals of a major tournament by mulling to 4. Mull to 4, folks. It's okay. Yeah. Yes, I made it into the top 4 by mulling to 4.
Very nice.
You can do it, folks. It's very much the game plan. It's why cEDH decks have so much powerful cards. Like, if you were playing a vintage deck, you wouldn't have as many powerful cards as we do in cEDH.
Yeah.
Like, as weird as that sounds. And that's just because of the commander alone. Now, if I was to play this deck and I was to worry about one thing, you know what it'd be?
What's that?
It'd be whether or not I can keep the temperature hot enough to keep these lizards alive.
That's right.
No, what are some like we've talked over a lot of cards. Like, what's overlooked or underrated cards in this deck in your opinion?
Overlooked or underrated cards in this deck. I honestly, a card that I think is typically underrated in general is, like, I know some lists are on it. It's very on the fence for a lot of people, but I really like Professional Facebreaker. This card is super explosive, right?
That card is so good.
And
love
some
this
people
card. Underplayed.
Yeah, I think it's underplayed. I think some people that should run it don't, right? And Professional Facebreaker is a 3-mana human warrior that has menace, so 2/3. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you make a treasure token, and then you can sacrifice the treasure to exile the top card of your library, and you can play that card this turn. Basically,
go ahead. I was just gonna say, I used to play this card in Blue Farm, and like every time I had it, I loved it.
Yeah, it's just mana and card advantage built onto one card. A lot of times it's like a build your own ad nauseum. So you cast Professional Facebreaker, maybe you pass the turn even, right? You go to your second turn, you cast Dockside, draw however many cards as artifacts and enchantments on the field, right? That is my favorite best case scenario for this card, is that it's just a build your own ad nauseum.
I've used it to empty my library for Thoracle before.
Awesome. I like that. That's hot.
It's just so good because, like, yeah, you play it and then you can play your Timna and it's got menace and you draw a card, you get a treasure every turn, like it starts to stack up. I love that card. Mm-hmm. I also wanted to ask you about Blood Moon. Why is this in the deck?
Okay. So this is the first time I've really had the opportunity to like run Blood Moon in a deck, right? Mm-hmm. And I took it very quickly. So as you see, our land base is very tiny. We're on 22 lands. And I think Blood Moon, realistically, I think it attacks a lot of the meta right now. So if you're able to get an early Blood Moon, I think it just shuts off Sisay. I think it mainly Sisay, right? Sisay relies on being able to find Dockside. And when you shut off green and black mana, it is a lot harder to find Dockside. But it shuts off some of the top decks in the format. I think I know they can get around it by just having Dockside in hand and naturally drawing Dockside or rocks. But I think specifically currently, I think this card is pretty good in the meta. And maybe it's not. I haven't really playtested with it a lot. It could end up being not quite good enough, maybe not fast enough. So a lot of times we are trying to go fast, and this is sort of like a go slow game plan. But I think especially those early turns, it can really mess up your opponents, so you can go for a win quicker than they can because you're utilizing red mana mostly anyway. And the red mana that you're not, you're really hoping to apply a Dockside or something on field. Obviously, your opponents can do the same. This can come back to hurt you, but I think most of the time it would help. if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah, it's never been a better meta for Blood Moon. It literally kills one of the top decks of the format. Nadu does not have a good time against the Blood Moon.
True. It doesn't have a great time against Blood Moon.
Blue Farm has a shit time against the Blood
It's
Moon.
really bad. It's really bad.
Like-
Yes.
Like if you thought Nadu didn't have a good time, sometimes Blue Farms don't run a single basic.
Yeah,
We
Same
don't.
with Rockside decks.
We don't run any basics. No one does.
Yeah.
pretty much, yeah. Like I'm on basics because I'm 2 colors, right? I'm on 1, 2, 3 basics.
No, we didn't even run basics in Blue Farm back when I started playing, which was like a year ago.
Yeah. I don't think,
Mhm.
honestly, I don't remember a time where Blue Farm ran basics.
No, I don't think we ever did.
One Island. It used to run
One
One
Island?
Island during
One
Winota.
Island?
During Winota, yes. Yeah, I remember running
sure.
One Island.
I mean, we run
I can see
Ottawara,
that.
so like I can see One Island. Right.
Yeah.
This was actually before Ottawara, so that actually makes
Okay.
more sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see
Yeah,
it. One
definitely see
Island,
that.
one Plains, even if you're like really scared of Winota, and then you can like chain it or you can swords it, and you're
Yeah.
good. Well, chaining it wouldn't mean you're good, but swordsing usually kicks them down for long enough for you to do other stuff.
That's right.
Cool. So I'm trying to see if there's anything else that like really stood out. Why are you on Agate Blade Assassin? This card looks not great, honestly.
Oh, I get it.
I like it. Maybe it's not worth running, but it is just one card that triggers Gov to apply a lot of pressure, right? I think this card gets a lot better when you are on the grind plan. The card itself is not that great, but with Gev, I think is what makes it that much better and pushes it into that realm to where you are able to cast these creature spells that ETB with their 3 counters every time guaranteed. And
Before you defend it too much,
yeah,
you are adding a Vexing Bauble.
I
Why?
am probably adding a Vexing Bubble. You're probably right.
Wait, but
It's
we
like
have
before you go too hard on this card, you are adding
I-
a Vexing Bauble. I feel like it's gonna
I
be-
will say I am not super high on this card, but it is a lizard. It is a card that triggers Gev. It makes Gev better. And maybe, it might not see the last cut. That's totally fine.
I don't
it
think
is a card I definitely wanted to playtest because I know like the Belb decks back in the day, right, would run these effects. Granted, Belb is making mana advantage and not
right.
pressure advantage. And like I said, maybe it's not worth running at the end of the day. This is like one of the first draft ups of this deck. I've been playing with it a little bit. I haven't even drawn the Agate Blade Assassin yet.
It's cool.
I feel like you
What's
don't
that?
You
want to
can
be
even
on.
play Vexing Bauble through your grinding station loop.
You can.
I don't think we want to be on Vexing Bauble in a Bolus Citadel deck.
Ooh.
Well, you can always crack it when you have Bolus Citadel.
I guess that's true, but it feels like kind of a non-bow to me.
There's still a lot of
Citadel is
things to
one of the
like.
things.
There's definitely a lot of things to still tinker and learn about this deck, right? Even in this call, we've learned quite a bit together just about the deck itself, right?
Yeah.
So it's brand new. It's just come out. We're still playtesting a lot of cards. We're figuring out what works best, but I think this is a pretty good shell to base off of.
It is super good. I was gonna say also your Agate Blade Assassin also triggers Jasper, so there's that.
It does do that.
And Obnixilis.
Obnixilis. It is draw 3 with Obnixilis, essentially, right? Exile the top 3.
No, it's one life because it's defending player, so it's only a draw 1.
Yeah, it's just one.
I thought it was each.
No.
Oh, that makes this card.
I think Agate Blade just got a
That's
cut.
all good.
I think it just got a cut. I thought it was each opponent.
That's why I was like, maybe before you go too hard on defending how great this card is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe this card gets cut. I did think it was each opponent, which would have made it a lot better.
We've all been there, man. We've all been there. We've all had that one card. We're like, this card is so good. Why aren't people playing this? It's so great.
Don't
And
get
then
me
you
wrong,
think
but
about
I don't
it,
think
and
it
you're
would
like,
be played any other deck.
wait a minute. I don't see too much else. We're also on Necropotence, which is very cool, and the One Ring. So we're on a lot of draw engines here, of course. Why do you have Dismember? Just one mana kill Draenith, basically.
Yeah, I think Dismember hits a lot of like the problem childs that we play against, and it's one colorless. I mean, you can pay the 4 life or you can pay the black, but typically it's 1 colorless because it's instant that is 3 CMC, but it's 1 Phyrexian black, which means you can pay 2 life instead of the black. And it says target creature gets -5 until end of turn.
Right.
My meta is sort of like my local meta is sort of a lot of hate bears and stuff, which might be why I'm on a couple more removal pieces than typical. And I think Dismember is just that piece that sort of fills the gap between Deadly Relic and Lightning Bolt. I think it is just a pretty good piece of removal that removes hate bearers. Maybe that's a good response to that question.
Yeah, I know. I get it. Like, I was just curious as to why this specific card. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we should talk about. Flare Duplication is cool. You can sack your Gev to this to essentially get a counterspell and try to go for a win.
True. It also copies Ad Nauseams.
Yeah.
Which is
it can copy someone else's Nas, but I mean, that's a little rough when you're in red and you don't have another counterspell off your Nas to actually stop
So typically, if there's a Nas on the stack, a lot of times you'll want to pass priority on the actual Nas and wait for someone to cast a counterspell.
Let that battle
Sometimes
go
that will backfire, because they won't cast a counterspell and they'll just resolve a Nas. But most of the time, you have at least one opponent that will fight for it. They'll cast a counterspell, and then that might be where, especially if the player that cast the original Nas doesn't respond, that might be where you would cast the Flare second creature to target the Nas to copy it yourself.
Right. Okay. I guess last thing we should take a quick look at is your lands, but it looks very standard. The only thing really popping out to me, well, there's a couple things here. Talon Gates of Madara, good because it plops out Draenith for a turn, basically. I'm assuming that's what you want this for.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Draenith and the 2 mana 0/4 that doesn't see a whole lot of play, but does see some play. The Phyrexian, I have one. It doesn't let you play. Yeah,
Phyrexian rule of law thing.
Not what I'm talking about, but those two.
CENSER, Phyrexian Censor.
I'm talking about Soulless Jailer. Sorry.
Oh, ew.
Soulless Jailer.
Yeah.
Oh, that's different.
So that really stops the like Bolus of Citadel Underworld Breach stuff too.
Yeah,
that's a pretty nasty card.
And it doesn't see a whole lot of play in the wide meta, but it does in my local meta. So
saves your
there's definitely something to play.
Saves your professional Facebreaker, saves your Goblin Engineer when they try to kill it on the next turn. They're
Very true.
You know what? Or like I don't want your Welder getting your Citadel back. I'm gonna kill it. Phase it.
Phase. Done. Easy.
You're also
don't worry, bros. It's just a phase.
You're also on a basic package with Prismatic Vista, which makes sense because you're a Blood Moon deck. The other land that really caught my eye was Emergence Zone. So for those that aren't familiar, it's a colorless land, so you can tap add colorless, or you can pay 1 and sacrifice it, and then you can play spells this turn as though they had flash. It was like a Born Upon a Wind in a land form. I imagine this is basically just good for you because you can this lets you just sit there and wait for someone else to win and then crack it and play everything at flash speed.
Yeah, so it has that utility, and then it sort of fills our Born role with Necropotence. Like, you obviously have to have the land already out.
Right.
But it sort of fills the same role. Like, it's worse, but you got to do what you got to do,
Right.
But yeah, you can also crack it when another opponent goes for a win. You can maybe try to win on top of them.
I often say this. Rakdos, the only thing holding Rakdos down to like out of the top tier decks is the lack of a single red Born Upon a Wind effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
The only one you really have is Final Fortune, right? And that's where you just take an extra turn. You don't get to cast those spells right then.
You still discard down into a Necro, which is awful.
It is awful.
The minute they make a Born Upon the Wind effect that's either red or, God forbid, if they make a black one, you're going to see Crick shoot up into the top deck. You're going to see all of these Rakdos decks just be like, nope, it's the era of the turbo.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, you thought it was turbo now. Mana. Wait until that gets printed.
Okay.
We joked about it. We said 3 mana, half your life. I'd pay that for that effect.
Exactly. I would.
All right. I think that I can't really see anything else. Citrus Supplier, I think, has breach lines, right?
It does have breach lines.
Yeah.
we can run through those real quick. So Stitcher Supplier is a 1 mana, 1/1 zombie. When it enters the battlefield or dies, you mill 3 cards.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially the loop here is with Culling the Weak, where you pay 1 black, you sacrifice a creature, and you make 4 black. This will go mana positive and graveyard positive. Well, it doesn't go graveyard positive, does it? So you still have to cast both spells.
No, but it'll make you a lot of black
stuff.
mana.
But I know how to run them. I just haven't ran them a lot yet.
Oh, you're all good. This is a very new commander.
So the way the loop works, you're netting mana each time, and you're basically doing the same thing as Grinding Station, just going through your deck until you find like a wheel plus a defense grid or something to further fill your graveyard, or just find a combo piece that just wins the game there anyway.
Right, and this you can filter the blackout through just like an ad nause or something.
Yeah,
it's a lot more useful than colorless mana
for sure,
or like a detutor or something. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Last card that really jumped out at me was Saw in Half, and this is just good because so you can destroy. It's instant 200 black. Destroy target creature. If it was destroyed this way, if it dies that way, you create 2 tokens that are copies of the creature, except their base power is half, and their base toughness is half rounded up.
Yep.
This combo is really well with Dockside. And then this also works with Dualcaster Mage, right?
It does work with Dualcaster. Yeah. So if you do it at like an end step or something, both this spell is an instant speed spell, and so is Dualcaster because it has flash. So if you cast a Saw in Half targeting, let's say best case scenario, you're targeting your Dockside, and then you also flash in the Dualcaster Mage with that still on the stack, you're going to hold priority. Cast the Dualcaster Mage, the Saw in Half will, or Dualcaster will copy the Saw in Half will target the Dualcaster, rinse and repeat again, and then you'll go to your turn, untap, and swing out for game, right?
Right. Very good.
It's even better if you have a lightning bolt somewhere in between.
True, and there is a lightning bolt in the deck too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just go lightning
because you
bolt,
make 2
cast
Dualcaster
Saw in Half,
Mages.
cast Dualcaster. Look, 7
Yeah.
mana, Mom, and I killed the table.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
They never stood a chance. It's the same thing with Praetor's Grasp on your turn.
Yeah.
Saw in Half is one of those cards that just gets more degenerate as you play it. I had a Cursed Mirror Bowmaster that I used, and someone tried to kill it in response to my wheel, so I sawed it in half. I don't think they were ready for that.
Probably not.
Like,
Imagine there's
it was just going to be 21.
I imagine there's some sort of loop with Saw in Half, Pinnacle Monk, and Culling the Weak. Something maybe? Am I cooking too hard?
I don't know about Calling the Weak, but definitely with Burnt Offering if you're running that.
Well, no, because you Culling with the Weak one of the tokens, right? And then you get 4 mana, and then it only costs 3 to recast.
You make Infinite Black.
You make Infinite Black, and then you can Saw in Half something else. And
That's
gnarly.
More importantly, though, you make Infinite Black, and they have Infinite Prowess.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Infinite prowess.
They have Infinite Prowess.
They don't have haste.
No, they wouldn't have a
the
haste.
issue with that, but they would be very big.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's a
massive.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's a certain outlet you can do. Oh,
So
I can see a Imperial Recruiter kind of line with it, where you go like Recruiter into Pinnacle Monk,
Recruiter
into I think this works. So you Recruiter into this, into Culling Line to Infinite Black, and then you Recruiter and you find
Bowmaster.
I was about to say Bowmaster and I don't know, like Dockside or something.
Yeah.
Well, you could just find Dualcaster off of Imperial Recruiter.
Yeah, you can just find. Well, no, the problem is the spell would have already resolved. So you gotta.
Yeah, you go into Pinnacle into Dualcaster, but here's a different option. How about Murderous Redcap?
Yeah.
You
do that too.
I wonder if there's like a way you could do it with that. I don't think there is. I just don't think there's a line with that where you don't need another instant. You would need to have like something like so you make the infinite, and then if you have like any once you make Infinite Black, all you need is another black spell engrave for it to be infinite. Like any of them.
Like DT
like
or something.
Praetor's Grasp would be infinite with that.
Yeah, you just exactly.
You can still exile their whole library.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and like you can go Pinnacle Monk, Culling, and Saw in Half, and then
run the loop.
Yeah, and then
I don't think calling gets there because it's 4 mana. It's 1 for the calling, 1 for 3 for the saw. So it's 4
you're
mana.
right.
You're only making 4.
Calling is +3. You're completely right, but you'd end up with infinite prowess,
ETBs, and
Pinnacle one. Yeah, infinite ETBs.
Yeah,
Infinite Storm.
Death.
So hang on, I'm trying to think of a way to get there.
I think if you had Burnt
Cabal Writ
Offering
doesn't do it. Dark Writ doesn't do it. Burnt Offering
Offering would do it.
Would do it.
Maybe you can swap out a gate for Burnt Offering. I don't know.
Oh, that would actually make more sense.
And then you'd get
you
infinite
do creatures.
Yeah.
Like worst thing that it is it's a dark ritual that sacked a creature. Oh no!
Yeah, right.
Like you weren't gonna do that anyways. It's like oops! I didn't want to sack that creature.
Huh? I'm never
the Rakdos deck.
So much
that, huh?
Burnt would be sick. Also, you are on Cursed Mirror, so Burnt Offering can also get like someone else's commander up there.
True.
Oh my god!
I'll just like Cursed Mirror and Atraxa that's on field. Reveal 10 cards. Pick a Burnt Offering. Sack the Atraxa.
Yeah, I love Atraxa decks. People go like, "Oh, why do you like Atraxa decks?" I was like, "Because they're my favorite opponent in the world." Exactly. No other deck plays such a high quality of creatures and can whiff so hard in the same turn.
Yeah, I love cloning them. I like having Atraxas and Tibbets because so I can have them.
Exactly, it's so much fun.
Like, I love cloning them. I like taking them. I like all their cards in the grave that they put. I like stealing from their deck. It's all great. Like Atraxas are great. They're a great resource for a table. You just got to remember that eventually they do have to die.
Yeah.
You do have to kill them, folks. To quote another MTG player, friends are just opponents you haven't beaten yet.
Yeah.
Damn.
And to quote me, I am not here at this table for you. I am at this table for me. You all gotta die.
Very fair. Wise words.
Fair enough.
Which brings us into our next thing. Was there anything else you'd like to say? Yeah, yep, our shoutouts. Was there anything else you'd like to say about Gev or like the
locals,
deck? Maybe some homies you'd like to shout out?
Or you can tell everybody no.
I could just say no. You're right. Can I? Okay, so can I shout out a YouTube channel that I've recently become a part of?
No, that's not.
Okay.
No, I'm playing. Yes, you can.
Okay. Awesome. Cool.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's fun.
No,
you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. So recently, I've been brought into a team called Back on the Stack. Right.
Yeah.
These guys have been playing for about a year now on YouTube. They've made it to about, last time I checked, it was about 1,300 subs.
Nice.
Which is pretty sweet. They've recently asked me to become a part of their team. I've been in a couple of their videos now. It's been a blast playing with them. I like the boys a lot. They're fun to play with. It's all gameplay videos. So I'd like to shout out that channel.
Yeah.
As I am obviously a part of it now. And I would like to shout out my boy John for helping me brew this deck initially. Me and him sat there for a few hours just going over Rakdos combos and what we think would work and what wouldn't work. And we came to pretty close to what you guys saw. I had made some changes, but we had ended up on pretty close to what you guys saw in this deck tag. So I would like to shout out him for helping me make this deck.
We dubbed over him. What does that mean? Okay. What happened? Okay. Cool. Yes. Very good. Yeah, so we will link that channel down in the description of the video, and
awesome, thank you.
Definitely check it out. Last up, very last thing we've got is our extremely trademarked and confidential price scale that we are sharing with the world right now. Never been seen before. Patent pending. So it's a scale, and I know you're familiar with this, but for those that are not, it's a scale that goes from 0 Scoville units with the bell pepper all the way up to the Carolina Reaper, which is 2 million Scoville units, and it will probably just kill you if you try to eat it, and you're not sufficiently trained on that sort of thing. But anyway, so where would you put Gev on a scale of 0 to 2 million?
Where would I put Gev on a scale of 0 to 2 million? Look,
0 to 2.
I think this is the spiciest Rakdos deck game. Okay, I am slamming at 16 or 1,600,000.
Wow. Yeah, that's going to be a Carolina Reaper. All right. What do you think, Samurai?
Chocolate, you literally have 2 other Rakdos decks in here.
Oh, come on. No,
I think it's a
yeah.
Fair
habanero
enough.
chocolate. He literally has Obnixilis in the deck.
Fair. I mean,
This is Freaky Deaky Prosper, and I love it. But it's definitely like a habanero chocolate. It's definitely middle of the pack on spiciness. It gets props because it's lizards, which add that little tang, that little, as the Creoles will say, that little hip tang to it. But in all honesty, base is just Rakdos good stuff, and I approve of this message. It's very good.
yeah, actually, now that you talk about it, I think I agree a little bit.
I guess I can bring
I don't
it
know.
down. It's Lizard Tribal, Bez.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm gonna go one step higher. I'm gonna give you the boot Jalokia.
Okay, thank you.
It's pretty good. It's pretty spicy. I like the Bold Citadel. I like the MDF. I like the logic of the MDFCs, like stopping you from bricking. I like the lizards. I mean, like what more can you ask for in a cEDH deck if you want it to be spicy than friggin' just random lizards, right?
Exactly.
That's pretty great. Cool. Well, thank you again very, very much for coming back on the show. We definitely appreciate it. Thanks for coming and talking to us about our lizard savior. Is there a fun title you'd like to give the deck? I don't know if I can fit rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock in a thumbnail.
Leap
Maybe
and
something a little
lizards.
shorter.
That's a good question.
We could just say lizard wizard. Honestly, I like that.
Lizard wizard, just lizard tribal, just straight up.
We can't say
Lizard
Flinging
typal.
lizards.
we got to say typal.
That's fair.
Watsy approved.
Lizard typal, Watsy approved.
Yes. I mean, I get why they did it.
What the hell?
It makes sense.
Yeah, I do
but-
too.
I get it.
I understand.
Oh, you know what I thought this was? We're flinging lizards. That's it. Flinging lizards.
Flinging lizards. Oh, that's
lizards.
beautiful.
I like it.
I like
was
that
it.
one too.
I was like, it was something about, oh yeah, flinging lizards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Flinging lizards. All right,
I
cool.
like that.
Well, I think that's gonna wrap us up. We're gonna fling ourselves out of this one. Thanks again.
Understood.
Remember to like and subscribe, everybody. And next week we'll have a really fun one as well. So watch out for that.